Morning, everyone. Looks like we're still waiting for a few more members to sign on so that we can have quorum. But since it looks like we have most, if not all, of our applicants here, I'll go ahead and go through the kind of preamble meeting rules and procedures, just so everyone is aware. So this is the February 20th, 2025 meeting of the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee. The regulations and procedures are as follows. Actions during the committee or during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the start of any presentation. The recused committee member will then leave the meeting for the duration of the case discussion. The chair will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call of the committee. The administrator will introduce the first project. The meeting will then be turned over to the applicant to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the committee. Once the presentation has concluded, the administrator will provide background information and read any received public comment when applicable. The committee will then begin deliberations and project review. Please use the raised hand feature if you'd like to speak. After deliberations and review concludes, the committee will render its recommendation and/or motion. The applicant may leave the meeting after their presentation or after their project review is complete. All projects will follow the same format until all projects are heard by the committee. Once all projects are heard, the chair will call for any committee/administrator reports. Once all reports have been heard, the chair will then adjourn the meeting. Regarding community comments, any and all community members may provide their written comments, thoughts, or questions regarding projects presented to the committee. Community members may also telephone their comments or questions to the committee administrator. All comments, thoughts, or questions must be submitted to the committee administrator no later than 48 hours prior to the start of the meeting. Public comment received after the deadline will not be heard by the committee. Public comment will be collected by Landmark staff and sent to the committee members for review prior to the scheduled meeting, and then Landmark staff will summarize the received comments during the meeting. The applicant of the project is under no obligation to answer any community questions. Community members are invited to attend the Design Review Advisory Committee meetings, but there will be no open public comment period. All projects are being reviewed using the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation and are being considered for the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. All projects are considered on a case-by-case basis. Presentations were received and distributed to the committee members for review prior to the scheduled meeting. Changes to the presentations after the confirmation of receipt by Landmark staff are not shown. The Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee makes recommendations to the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. Recommendations are not final actions. Depending on the scope of the project, submissions may be approved administratively or will need to be reviewed by the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. If that's the case, projects will be scheduled at the next available commission meeting after an action is taken. Just a reminder to everyone, here are the Secretary of the Interior Standards. If there are any questions about them or their applicability during the meeting, happy to pop the slide back on there for reference if anyone needs it. But with that, it looks like, do a quick head count here. Looks like we do have quorum, Madam Chair. So if you want to call the meeting to order, I'm happy to do roll.
Yep, let's get going. Do we have quorum, Dan? Sorry.
Yeah, it looks like we do. So if you want to call the meeting to order, I can do a roll call.
Okay, it's calling today is Thursday, February 20th, calling today's meeting of the Historic Ohio City Design Review Committee to order.
All right, Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Flaherty?
Here.
Mr. Frondorf?
Here.
Ms. Land?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Persons? Mr. Talley?
Here.
Mr. Trevisano? And Ms. Marinucci.
Here.
Madam Chair, we do have quorum. So our first case today is case HOC 25-05, 1911 West 30th Street, aka St. Ignatius High School. We're looking at signage, I think primarily on their new addition that you guys reviewed last year or the year before. In any case, it's coming up nicely, and so they're ready to show you what they're planning for signage. So I don't know
And
if,
I'll be recusing from this case, just so you know.
okay, was that Mara?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it looks like we've got a few people from their team here. Pat Hyland, Richard Klingshire, Andy, I guess, whichever one of you wants to start running through the presentation, just let me know when you want me to change slides.
Very good, Dan. This is Richard Klingshire speaking. I am owner's rep for St. Ignatius High School. So I will be leading through the conversation, as you mentioned. We also have Patrick Hyland, who is architect with Prospectus Architecture, Brandon Rosella with Pompili Precast, which is handling one of the elements of signage, and Andy Bernadovitz with ASI Signage, which is handling two of the elements. So those folks will be available for any questions, but I'll walk through the presentation. So you can proceed to the next slide. So just a couple to orient. So this is very high level view. And if you go to the next slide, we can orient against some streets that make a little more sense. So this is the location of our new building. The yellow dash is the outline of the building. You can see that it fronts our football field, Wasmer Field, and it's sort of landlocked inside of our campus. You see Lorraine Avenue there to the south, West 28th to the east, and that is where the signage, those two streets is frankly where the signage is visible from across the field on West 28th and heading west on Lorraine. You can go to the next slide, which is just our site plan. I just pulled this out of the plan. So the grayed out area is the new building. The red bubble just represents landscaping in an interior courtyard there fronting the field. So that's the site plan. So next slide, which is current conditions, obviously not taken today. That was a couple days ago before winter returned. But you can see the building steel is just about complete, and they're working on the interiors as we speak. Our plan is to have the building complete by the end of summer, early fall, so that it is in use for next school year. So the next slide simply shows high-level elevation. On the bottom is the east-facing facade, which is where the three elements of signage are that you'll see in a moment. The top image is simply the north-facing facade, but there is no signage on that facade. So then we get to the next slide, which is a rendering of the east facade of the building with the three elements of signage. St. Ignatius High School, which will be pinned letters on a railing on a kind of a viewing platform there. The motto of the Jesuits, AMDG, Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam, translated for the greater glory of God, up on the building. And then DeSanto Hall in precast letters, which is the name of the building. The one comment I have here is, as we went through the initial approval process for the structure itself, it was noted and I think well received that after 100-some years of the neighborhood looking at the backside of St. Ignatius High School, we are now turning around and proudly facing the city of Cleveland with a facade. So we're really looking forward to this. Let's go to the next slide because I think this is important too. So this is a zoom out looking across from West 28th Street. And I show this simply because we also have signage already to the south or to the left on this image on our Murphy Fieldhouse. So ASI did that signage as well. But I wanted to make sure you saw that as well so that you're looking at this entire elevation and all the elements of signage for full disclosure. So then if we move ahead, we have the first shop drawing, which are the two elements of signage that ASI is doing for us. Pinned aluminum letters, St. Ignatius High School. Again, that'll be pinned to a railing, 24 inches high are those letters in our navy blue color. And then the AMDG that will be pinned up at the top of the building. Those are 48 inches high, those letters. And those will be painted in the gold color. Again, that gold will match what you saw on Murphy Fieldhouse as well, and the blue on the seal of that. The next slide is just the elevation on the building of those two components. The St. Ignatius High School piece reads pretty small there, but you can see it along that railing above the entrance, and then the AMDG. And then if we go to the next slide, we see the shop drawing of the DeSanto Hall. Now these will be etched into precast concrete by Pompili Precast. So there's several here that follow, but this is the image on those precasts. These letters are about 2 foot 2 inches tall, the actual lettering, and the blocks that they will be etched into are a little over, I believe, 4 feet tall. So that's how that will. And then they just kind of proceed through for purposes of the shop drawings, the different all the different letters and the pieces that how they're gonna fall onto the different blocks. The rest of the slides, so as Dan pages through those, I included this, which is very busy, but I just showed it. On the right-hand side, it has some of the dimensions so that you can see that, the DeSanto Hall sign, if you add up the dimensions on the right, the dimensions, it's about 35 feet off of the track. Again, there is no sidewalk, there's no street front, it's not fronting any street. It's about 35 feet off the track. And from that, you can, kind of glean where the others are up fairly high. And then the next one is just, I think, another shop drawing that I included for reference, but it's, yeah, that's just from Pompili. None of these signs are illuminated, so there's not going to be any exterior lighting shining on these at night or anything like that. They're just, it's basically visible from our football field. And obviously, I think from, you'll certainly see the AMDG from Lorraine heading west and from across the field. The DeSanto Hall, we are going to tint those letters a little bit, but they will be, visible against that precast, but not, they're not going to jump out at you. So that's kind of the gist of what we'd like to do, and at this time we'll turn it to questions. And as I mentioned, I'll turn to either ASI or Pompili if there are specific questions about the elements themselves.
Well, I for one have no questions, and thank you for an excellent presentation. It was very straightforward and professional, so thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
I just want to repeat what was already said, is that it's really a nice elevation to face the city. And yeah, it just looks like a great addition to the neighborhood. I think if no one has any other comments, we can move along. I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Dan, can you call the roll? Unless I guess there's anyone has dissenting comments or further conversation.
Yeah, not seeing anyone. I'll go ahead. Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Flaherty? Oh, I'm sorry, she recused herself. Mr. Frondorf?
Yes.
Ms. Land?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Talley?
Yes.
And Ms. Marinucci?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously. Nice, fast, and efficient. I like it. So we will,
Thank you.
me or my staff will be in touch with next steps. But yeah, you guys have been unanimously approved by this committee. So I'll reach out.
Great. Thank you all very much. I appreciate the help. We look forward to continuing the project. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. All right, next up we have another individually designated landmark. That's, I guess, also in a historic district, just like St. Ignatius. We have the West Side Market, 1979 West 25th Street. Not sure what's going on with my computer there, but this is a project we saw schematic level review October 17th of last year. I'm not sure what's going on. Let me try something else, but I know we have Amy Haney here, and I saw a few other names. Chris from TMC. I know Ms. Trevisano was not able to be here, but shared her support for the project. So yeah, if Amy, if you guys want to go ahead through your presentation, I'll
And Dan,
try one more.
as we start, I'm going to recuse myself for this one.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks.
Is Mara back?
Yes.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you guys. All right,
Thanks.
Amy, go ahead. Just let me know when you want me to click through.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right, thanks for the introduction. I will be presenting the final design for the West Side Market renovation. We did come in last month to get a fence around the service yard that we're putting in the parking lot approved. But today we'll be going over the renovations, window and door replacements, some landscape planning, and the new connector pieces that are going in between the market hall and the arcade building on the north side of the market. We have some presentation materials that we have provided, as well as Robert P. Madison, another architect that is on the project. Daru Landscape Architecture has done the landscape design, and Civil Design Group has done the civil design. Go to the next page. So just to orient what we're going to be calling these elements of the plan, there's the main market hall, and then the north arcade and the east arcade. The market hall is just going under a renovation on the interior with replacement windows. And then the north arcade is becoming a food hall with prepared food in it. And then the east arcade is where the produce vendors will be moving. So that will be known as the produce arcade. You can go to the next slide. We can just look at the northwest corner. That's fine. I think these are different sizes, Dan, so that might be why your computer is freaking out a little bit. These are just some of our civil plans, so you can see where signage is going, drainage, utilities. You'll see that utility yard that is north of the north arcade. And go to the next slide. We can probably go through these kind of quickly just for your reference. Yep, this is just showing where this is the utility plan, I think. Grading plan, where our door locations are. You can see in the gray here, those connector buildings in between the market hall and the north arcade. Next slide, I think, is the survey. Yep. So that's the current conditions there without the connectors. And then here we are at the courtyard. I think this goes back to 11 by 17s for a while. So this is an overview of the final condition where there is a courtyard between the market hall and the arcade. The thought is that you can see the courtyard from West 25th Street, so that you get this experience of the new interaction with the market that doesn't exist now, that is currently an alleyway that is used for servicing the market. We are proposing to pave that with pavers and put new furniture, landscaping in there. Next slide. So just to refer to these exterior images a little bit, we are proposing to replace all of the windows and doors on the market with new historic windows, but for the large windows on the east and west elevations here, so just over the main entrance doors on both of the east and west facade, those are remaining, and the kind of green blue color that is later in the presentation package, that paint color was chosen to match kind of this market green. We keep talking about the market green color that everything is going to be, but there are probably 7 or 8 different colors of green on the market. So this is the green that we are trying to match since those windows are remaining. You can go to the next slide. Just to orient what the arcades are looking like, we are replacing all of these windows. They're actually garage doors for the most part, and man doors. We are replacing with new garage doors and some fixed door fronts and swing doors on that East Produce arcade. And then for now, we are just patching and replacing the roof and cleaning and repointing the brick. We'll go to the next slide. You can just go through those fees very quickly, Dan, just for reference of which windows are being replaced. The clock tower was already renovated. I think that's been complete a year now. So we are leaving that in place. Next slide. You can see here we're not proposing to replace those the large windows. Next. And then here are the elevations for the arcades. As you can see, we are replacing with new garage doors that open up instead of sliding inside the arcades. There are 2 like double door swing doors on the East arcades instead of the garage doors. That would be more easily managed for servicing the produce vendors. And then there are a lot more fixed door fronts than there are currently. But SHPO and the National Park Service have reviewed this and have approved the plan for the arcades. Next slide. So these are the new connector pieces that are going in between the Market Hall and the North Arcade. So we have a west connector and an east connector. The west connector is really just a vestibule that is giving you this kind of picture window into the interior courtyard. And then the east connector is more of a service connection. On the eastern side of it, there is a new stair, a new elevator that goes down into the basement to service the North Arcade vendors and the East Arcade produce vendors. And then on the west side of the east connector, there is a pedestrian connection to the new event space that is on the 2nd floor of the market. And get into the next page and the plan. You can see the plan that I just described. That west connector is just an interior connection between the Market Hall and the North Arcade, and it frames that interior courtyard. And then the east connection has that pedestrian connection on the interior to the market, as well as that service on the east side. And go to the next plan. It's just the roof plan, and then you can see the 2nd story where the new event space is going, as well as an event kitchen and renovated offices on the west side. Go to the next plan. It's the roof plan of those connectors. The elevator does have an overrun that you can see from the eastern side, which is the service yard, but it is not very visible from the courtyard space because it is pushed farther back. And go to the next page. You can then zoom back into 11:17 presentation. So this is a view of the courtyard that is facing the West 25th Street. So we are proposing a landscaping planter with a bench that is facing this courtyard. On the left, you can see the garage doors that are opening into the North Arcade, and then the furniture cafe seating in front of those windows. And then the connector is just beyond that We are intentionally designing this to be very clear and kind of framing the courtyard on the interior. So you're looking straight through and getting this kind of vista of a new kind of public courtyard space in the market. Next slide. Looking into that pavement, so and how you get into the courtyard space. And you can see a better view of that planter. These are very similar to what is outside Terminal Tower on Public Square. The wood benches worked into the concrete with planters behind it. And go to the next page. So this is the view of the west connector. We are proposing a zinc cladding on the larger piece of the larger connector with doors on the right and left side that aligns with the circulation through the courtyard. And then so we get a big picture window looking through into the interior courtyard. And then how the connector is attached to the arcade in the market with a very small intervention that goes straight into the door frame of the arcade and the market hall, so that we don't have to touch the brick facade or the stone at all. It's going straight into the doors, and that we're proposing to clad with Decton, which is black. And we'll get a little bit further into the presentation. I have a sample here that I will bring into Landmarks next week. But we did go out and take some photos and selected the zinc very intentionally to look good in context. We'll get to that in a bit. Go to the next page. This is a view of that interior courtyard looking towards the east connector. You can see that we're proposing some warm gray pavers that are that have two different colors in a random pattern. On the left there will be a trench drain that goes underneath the tables on the left side. And go to the next page. So this is looking at the eastern side of that eastern connector. This is a service connection. And this will be kind of completely blocked by all of the trash, but we've removed the trash for this rendering. On the right there, you can see into the North Arcade. That is a tenant stall, so that will be a wall or a knee wall with shelving above, so you won't really see out to this from the North Arcade. That is the entrance to that stair and the service elevator. And then on the left there, that is the Decton entrance into the market. And then we are proposing CMU for the kind of service, the service connection, which is going to match the service yard, utility yard CMU, which was chosen to match the kind of the base, the stone base that is on the market and on the arcade piers. You can go to the next slide. Here's to give you an idea of the landscaping pavers and the furniture that we are looking at here. This is really supposed to be kind of a fun intervention to the market since it's new. We haven't chosen like all of these furniture pieces, but this is where we're going. I think that these colors go well with the market, which is very much a warmer yellow brick. We didn't want to go very cool. And then all of the plantings are in that kind of purple reddish range. We go to the next slide. Just a better image of the planting. I think the next page gets into the landscaping very minimally, yeah. So there are two planters in the courtyard that flank the southern side of the courtyard right next to the market building, but those are not built in. They are a planter that can be moved. Is same with the planter that is on the western edge along West 25th that is not built in. It is a movable planter. You can go to the next page. So we are proposing some minimal planting on the eastern side of the market and the East Arcade, just to kind of block a little bit of that service yard and kind of force pedestrians to go into the entrances at the market hall and not go back into the loading dock area. So on the connection to the market hall next to the cafe, we are proposing some kind of fencing and trees in front of there to block off the loading dock, and then evergreen shrubs along the East Arcade. And that tenant there at the end, we're showing those two doors where the intention is that they could probably bring products out there onto the sidewalk in the summer with tables. So we didn't want them to just blend into the loading area. Next page. So here is some of these zinc samples in context. We do have 3 samples shown. We took a look at all 3 of them in different contexts in that red area. That red arrow is pointing to the same sample that I have right here. As you can see, it looks a lot different depending on what lighting you're in, but we think that it looks good in all of the conditions. It is the best choice, no matter how you look at it. So that is again, just framing the glazing, and then the decton is a black. That is the portals that connect into the door framing at the arcade and the market hall. And go to the next page. This is the decton. It is a black matte finish. You can go to the next. So this is the white that we are proposing. It is a pretty good match of what's there currently on the arcade. So this would be any trim and soffits that you would see on the arcade buildings. And then the next is the green that kind of matches the windows that we are keeping. So we're going to try to get down to 1 West Side Market green. And this matches those windows really well. Next page. So this is the storefront system that will be on the arcade and in the connectors at the fixed locations. And these are the garage doors that we were proposing for the arcade. Next, or is that it? Aha. So these are the window, the historic windows. They will not be gray. They will be that green color. We're using these Graham windows as the basis of design. I think that is the last.
Yeah, that's it.
That is it. Okay, thank you. Open up to questions.
Dan, when we came, when this project was here for schematics, I think there was only like a couple of us left in that really long meeting. Could you summarize comments from here and from landmarks, just for the sake of like conversation, because majority of the people were not here. Majority of our board were not here.
Sure. Just give me 2 seconds to pull those files.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I should have thought of that ahead of time. Let's see, that was October. All right, so last time, this was when this came before the committee. Schematically, there was some discussion about wanting the doors to feel more open in the connector wings. I think they've accomplished that. Their previous version showed them a little, I guess there was a bit more framing, because there were concerns that the doors felt kind of like a barrier. They wanted it to feel more open to the community and to West 25th Street in particular. And then just sort of, I guess, discussion of the air control, climate control issues for the arcade and the market. Look, you guys recommended to look into paving patterns or colors. I thought that the proposed paving was maybe a bit too drab or monotone. And then suggested bifold or other doors that will not stick out into the space for the, I believe the overhead doors. I'm trying to think, are the renderings you had? Maybe here, there. Okay. So I think when you guys were talking about paving, it was referring to this paving here. I'm not sure if has that been changed at all, Amy, or
Yes.
is
So
this
I think we were proposing kind of a darker gray and monotone, but we went to a warmer gray, and then there are two different colors that are
they'll just kind of
randomly placed here, like
be
a mix.
randomly?
Yeah.
Okay. And then when this went to the commission,
And if you want, I can give a summary of the commission.
oh, thanks.
Yep. So it went to the Landmarks Commission for schematic review on October 24th. And the commission members there commented, there was a lot of discussion on the flow around the arcade, how it's changing with the proposed changes. There's also recommendations or suggestions for the gray color to be possibly a different gray or a buff color. And let's see, was suggestion for like a richer brick to pay homage to the brick street. That was there just to kind of have pavers. Comments on minimizing the visibility of the connector, the reinforcement of that pedestrian use around the building and the site. And also discussion of the National Park Service and SHPO reviews of that. And just a lot of discussion on the possibility for warmer accents and salvage and reuse of pavement and bricks. That's catches everything from Landmarks.
Thank you both. Sorry for making you work hard today.
No problem.
Clean out.
I can start if my colleagues are okay with that. I think it was me, Phil, and Whitney who were the last people standing at the meeting last time. I overall it was very impressed with the improvements and your response to our comments. Thank you so much for the work on this and the attention that the project very much deserves. So I do have a couple questions about the connector specifically, the one facing 25th. Dan, could you actually go to like, oh gosh, I don't know what sheet this is. 15 maybe? It says 15 on my computer. It's like the straight up elevation. Yes. I mean, I think the transparency is improved immensely. And I actually do really like the zinc color, like material proposed. I think that's a really interesting material that's different than what's here yet relates to in terms of color. And I do see that the connector is meant to be like a very distinctly modern, different intervention from what's there. Something that I'm kind of like two main things that I'm like still hesitant a little bit on is sort of the relationship in terms of datum to the existing buildings on either side. It's like almost like it looks like it's kind of splitting the difference, like that top zinc panel of the like eve of the market or the North Hall and the cornice, we could call it, of the market. I don't know. Can you like speak to how that's placed? Was there any thought or consideration to like matching the datum of the cornice? Kind of, it's to me just feels like a little too like, I don't know. I'm just struggling to see where it relates from a datum standpoint.
Amy,
Jacob.
to be
Can I
Yep.
jump
I was
into
gonna
that
say,
comment?
can you jump in?
Yeah,
Okay.
and if there's other
Yeah.
considerations like, depth needed for the mechanicals, which wouldn't be
Mhm.
surprised about, like just
Yep.
can you speak to that more?
So you did kind of touch on a lot of the challenge with placing this between the two buildings is that the two buildings themselves don't actually relate to each other very well. The arcades are very much sort of a separate building built to the side without relating either in plan or in elevation. So this piece does need to straddle both of those buildings in a very delicate way. Raising it up to the level of the lintel above the door on the market hall makes this connector very tall. It modifies the proportions of it, and it looks it just proportionally out of place. Bringing it down to that roof line that you're seeing in this elevation, that's actually the higher roof. So the typical roof of the arcades is a lower roof. And so you bring it down to one roof and okay, we'll relate to one piece of that building, but not the majority of that building. The other issue that comes up with lowering it that much is that it actually ends up not hitting the door going into the actual market hall because that door is almost 10 feet. And so we want to be able to have that portal as you go from this connector and the picture window of this piece, and that small portal that inserts itself into that door frame. We were looking to try and really fill out that door frame so that if you were to lower that ceiling down, you'd actually be below the door head of the existing market hall. So again, there's a lot of things coming into play, and we were very careful about selecting those datum lines in order to not create a situation where you were starting to obstruct one or the other. And I think also you brought up this point that it is something that is standalone on its own. It's a very muted but modern piece sitting between these two historic structures. So we wanted to make sure that it does continue to sort of stand alone and not try and relate itself too much to one or the other, because if you associate it with one or the other, it's going to automatically disassociate itself with whichever one you're not relating to. So,
Yeah, all of that makes sense. I mean, I think hearing the rationality is really helpful because I didn't doubt that there was a ton of thoughtfulness going into it. Alex, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, in looking at this, I am reminded of the Cleveland Museum of Art and their additions, especially their connectors between historic buildings. And what I think works particularly well in that setting is that it brought it more off of the historic stone facade of the museum. And maybe if you narrowed the bulk of the connector off of either building, then the concern that Nia brought up about, well, what datum line are we going from and how is this relating, might be less noticeable. I'm not sure. I haven't played around with it, but that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Because I know at the Cleveland Museum of Art, there's more distance between the building and the glass paneling.
Yeah, and unfortunately, and we did also review that same thing. What if you were to pull it further off? Because that piece that gets inserted into the door is not glass, because it is solid. The longer you make it, the more of a tunnel that becomes. And so we didn't want to make it too long, and then also looking at the overall proportion of the glass to the height, the width of the overall glass was.
Could that be a glass panel, the connector panel?
Jen,
It
can you
hasn't
go
been
to
budgeted.
Yeah, can you go to the next page and maybe zoom in on the plan so you can see where it's connecting?
Yeah, this is
into
Rosemary.
it? Yeah, there you go.
This is Rosemary from CPMC. I just want to jump in here. I think it's not just about the tunnel. It's about, to Jacob's point, the doors are two different heights and things like that. So even if it was glass, you'd have two different interventions that are different heights on each side of it. And I think there's a lot of reasons that, and a lot of work with SHPO and others to get this to a point of approval. And so I just would say, there's just been a lot of dancing around a lot of different requirements and challenges to get to the point where we are today and get SHPO satisfied and comfortable and get the way that the materials are interacting comfortably. So, I think
The other,
whether I think glass would be a challenge on either side for a lot of reasons. Although, like you, I think, the initial thought is like the more glass, the better.
Can I add a little bit
it,
onto that? You were showing connector 1, and I know we're talking about the height there, but it looks like connector 2 is a foot and a half, 1.5 taller. And I'm seeing like if we go back to that elevation sheet 15 real quick, and then, there we go. It says 11.6 to the top of the zinc, and then you scroll down, it says 12.5 to the top of the zinc. And you've added another row.
no, that's actually beyond. So the top of the zinc is the same. It should be the
Okay.
same.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Never mind
So
that.
that's-
I thought.
Yeah, as Amy had mentioned, there is because of the elevator and stair, there's an elevator override, and then there's also a mechanical doghouse that's pulling in air into the building, and so that pop up is happening set back, and so the actual piece that you're seeing, at that plane is going to be the same proportions. And to go back to the glass real quick, the other thing, Rosemary, that has resonated with me, because I think we did actually start with glass, was the fact it's a working market. And unlike the art museum where you have patrons, going into galleries, here you have patrons with little shopping carts that are toting behind them and just bulky stuff. And we don't want to have the risk of someone breaking a very expensive piece of glass in this working market condition. So
I have two more questions, comments. On this connector, again, connector 1 specifically, I will throw this out there. I'm sure you considered it. Can it open up all the way in the summer? Was that considered? Can it happen?
I'm happy to jump in here. We did consider this heavily. Our initial consideration was to do this. The performance of, again, I think Jacob goes back to the working market, the performance and level of use for that kind of product. One, to create it in a way that could be, there was a lot of operational challenges to doing it that way because of the volume of foot traffic that would pass over it. The opportunity for those doors to malfunction was very, very high. And if we opened it all the way, it then required additional doors on each side of the actual market hall in ways that we don't necessarily have to do that if the doors are formatted this way. I think there was a lot of concern those doors can get stuck. Again, generally they're not in places with that volume of people passing over. And so in the end, both from a cost perspective and from a performance perspective, and I want to emphasize the performance perspective was even higher. There was just an incredible amount of concern with how much stuff gets in those door tracks and treads, and the ability at the end of the day to close them and reopen them. And I think what they've found is in high use situations, people don't end up opening them that much because they open them and then they have a problem and then they're like, well, we can't open them again. And so it felt like a very, very expensive endeavor when operationally probably there was going to be a lot of hesitancy to open and close them too regularly because of just the volume of people passing by and the challenges with maintenance.
I think ultimately we decided instead of the physical openness that we would go with a visual openness and make the glass as visually open as possible to make that a picture window into the arcade, into the courtyard.
Yeah, and I think that this is just so much more successful at that. And I can see too from one of these renderings that like the paving material goes straight through as well, which is another like subtlety that helps enhance that. So I just needed to ask because my heart wants that. Can you go to my last
No, I
question?
appreciate it. I think all of our hearts wanted it as
I
well.
know.
And like the initial renderings we even did had it that way. And it, I think everyone was, you know, sad, but I think we got to make sure we're setting ourselves up for operational success, unfortunately. So
Totally. Last question is a site plan question. Again, I know I'm kind of obsessed with the 25th intersection, but if you could go, Dan, to which I'm trying to figure out. 24 is the slide on my computer. I don't know if that's the same as you. Yeah. Again, much more improved, I think, and inspired site planning here. And question is for that little bench detail facing 25th, or I guess it's I have a two-pronged question. One is the curb cut that currently exists on 25th to remain, or is that going to be remediated, meaning removed? And one rendering shows the bench one-sided and the other rendering shows the bench two-sided with the bench facing 25th, which I heavily prefer to both engage with 25th. Yes. And, you know, it is going to be, we're hopefully getting like a significant transit infrastructure improvement along 25th, but, you know, it just is an enhancing transit waiting environment engagement piece. So if you could clarify both the curb cut and if the bench is two-sided.
the curb cut is not part of our plan. Any changes to the curb cut would be part of broader improvements. You know, because there's already discussion around the BRT and like all kinds of street changes. We are leaving that as part of part of that conversation and work and part of the broader West 25th. So no, I guess, yes, we're in favor of the curb cut, but no, it's not part of our project right now. We'd like to advocate on behalf of it as part of broader streetscape work. And then it should be, I hear you on the two-sided, but right now we are currently showing a one-sided bench.
I think that makes sense in terms of like, so what we can assume that what you're showing, kind of the extent of the multi-tonal paver is going to be what's actually installed. So it needs to perhaps out of this avenue be broader advocacy of like integrating and engaging this improvement with that improvement, which I understand. I will be in other meetings talking about that then. Okay, that's enough for me. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Dan, could you go to the rendering? I don't know the number of the back of the connector. So I guess the east side. Is that one there? In that, a lot of people park in the lot behind the market. A lot of people approach from the rear. Is there a way that we could maybe match the brick or have at least tonally similar so it's not as stark? I know we want it to not be faux historic, but it kind of, at least in this rendering, sticks out a bit more than might be necessary.
Alex, just to clarify, this is in the alley that faces the dock, not the parking lot. So this is not visible from the parking lot.
Oh, maybe I misunderstood what this rent. Let me go to.
Right. There you go. Yeah. So
this just faces like a back of house and like trash cans and like dock and loading and
I see.
all
You're
of
right.
like the back of house
Utility part.
So
yeah.
Exactly, utility.
And because I see. Yep, exactly. Okay. Never mind. I thought it was. Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. If it were facing the parking.
Okay. Got it.
Thanks, Alex.
Yep. And then on the windows, I know you're doing historic. Are all the buttons exterior?
Jacob, do you know the detailing of that?
They're dual buttons. So there, yeah, that last page I think actually does have.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah. So
As long as they're-
that
yeah.
illustrates both the historic, what's in the historic drawings and the proposed new extrusions. So we're looking to match the configuration as closely as possible. But yeah, it does have dual mutton bars.
Okay. All right, and that I have nothing further then.
Can we go back to that rear elevation real quick? Rear rendering. There we go. I just had a quick question. It looks like the deck guide, that's like a stone, right? Or like similar to like those kind of tops they got from there. Just very kind of heavy material. I think I know where. I haven't used it. I just was kind of curious. But my question was, here it's shown with like some horizontals in it on the left. I was just wondering if you were doing the horizontals or if you were doing the panel like that image showed.
No, I think the intent was that it's more of a large scale format tile that wouldn't have those horizontals. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. That's
Yeah, I don't know how that turned out that way. Yeah.
I just want to say that I like the improvements that you made to the papers. I appreciate kind of the layout. I appreciate the rendering, the way you made the space feel active. How is that first connector draining? Is there just like an internal drain or just coming off the side? Or it looks very, just was kind of curious.
On the exterior or
The roof
interior?
track. Yeah, or this connector.
what was the? I'm sorry, I didn't catch
How
all
is
the
it?
question.
I think he's
How is it-
asking about like gutters, like drain, like water coming down on the roof.
Yeah, it's
right?
it's internally drained. Yeah, yeah, they're all internally drained. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think actually most of my questions were answered. And like I said, I appreciate all what you have done. Anyone else?
Most of my questions and comments Nia got. I'm sorry, was someone else talking? I think there was a little breaking up. Or is that me? Most of my questions or comments Nia got already. Obviously the connector is going to be a sticking point. I think what we've created is like an interior courtyard rather than, what was mentioned in the beginning of this kind of open alley from West 25th. So I think that's an important distinction, and I think it's going to impact how the public responds to how things are built. So yeah, I think that's just an important distinction. If there was a way to have more doors, I understand that there's not an opportunity to have a different door. I'm also thinking about air circulation too, especially on hot days. I mean, it kind of feels like the space will be very, might be kind of confined, or, I'm not sure how that will work in terms of like when doors are open and not, but the only additional question I had was about the planter, and it was said that it was movable. Is that correct? I guess can I ask why, why that wouldn't be a permanent structure?
Oh, it will be permanent. It's just not, it's not built in. So like it is its own kind of poured concrete thing. You would
More
have to have like
self-contained.
yeah. Yeah, so it's not
like a
going
crane
into the
would be
ground.
required to move it.
Yes, yes. Just that it's not going into the ground.
Not like rolling around.
No, you're not gonna be able to push it.
Okay, that makes me feel better, because it's also I really like it there, and I think it adds to the streetscaping quite a bit. More benches would be great too. I think having more permanent furniture, especially in that front area, would be really nice because that'll be accessible in hours that the market is not open. So I think, I don't know if that's something for today or in the future. But yeah, I appreciate the transparency. I think as you can see with the shadowing, it'll still be darker in the connector. That one picture really showed that light variation. So I think we'll get a lot of engagement more on the western portion of it. So yeah, more permanent furniture would be, I think, pretty cool. But I guess that's it. It kind of feels like the connector is going to be the sticking point here for, it getting like a really, really great project. And you have made so many improvements since the last presentation. And then getting like a really kind of perfect project, which is not maybe an expectation for any of us. But yeah, that was it. Just asking about that planner.
To make a motion if somebody has more comments. If not, I make a motion to approve as presented. Anyone else have a second? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we've got a motion on the table to approve as presented. Any seconds?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mara. All right, seeing no other comment or hands raised, I'll go into the roll call. Second. Okay, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Flaherty,
Yes.
Mr. Frondorf,
Yes.
Ms. Land,
Yes.
Mr. Miller recused himself, Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and Ms. Marinucci.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, guys. I believe we have you penciled in for meeting the commission next week, so we'll send out details probably later today or tomorrow morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Right,
so
thank you,
much.
guys.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate all your great feedback.
Thank you, guys.
Alrighty. Next case is, I got too many papers up. Case HOC 25-06, 1452 West 25th Street. Renovations to a building. Staff reviewed this with the applicants a couple months ago now. But they're here for schematic review. But I guess we'll see what the committee thinks. It's kind of a level project that if everyone's comfortable enough, I don't know that it would need schematic and then final review, but they asked for schematics, so that's where we'll start at least. But if the committee is super comfortable with it, we can always turn it into a final review. So let me know. With that, I will hand it over to the presenters. Looks like we got Eric and Drew here. Yeah, just let me know when you guys want me to click through slides.
Great, thanks a lot, Daniel. Hi, everyone. I'm Drew Thompson, architect at DS. I'll be speaking on this project today. Next slide, please. So for those who aren't familiar with the project, we're currently working with Flannery Georgalis law firm to renovate this old warehouse. Currently houses a car supply shop. The location is 1452 West 25th. So as you can see from the plan, this is right across from the new Irishtown Bend development happening. You know, we really targeted this spot as like a great place for them to, you know, start their new offices. So the scope of the project is pretty minor from an exterior standpoint. Most of it is interiors, you know, our main goals are really to restore the original building back to its historic nature with some minor alterations. And then, you know, again, to engage that new streetscape that we're also excited about. Next slide, please. So zooming into the site plan here. So the main building is this square brick structure, 2 stories high, with a small garage attached to the rear. The historic building is that main building. The garage is a later addition. So working with our historic consultants, we determined that was not historic. If you go to the next slide, you can see that we're calling for that to be demoed to sort of accommodate the need for parking on the site with the law firm coming in. So just talk a little bit more about the site. As you can see, the main frontage is to the right, the east, towards West 25th in that new Irishtown Bend Park, with the rear access drive off of West 26th Street. And that's the main crux of it. It's pretty simple. Next slide, please. So these are a couple of existing exterior shots of the building as it stands currently. So you can see a lot of that historic nature that was original to the building has been boarded up, painted over in certain parts. So if you look at the top left there, that's a front elevation that's facing that West 25th Street. So that's what we anticipate to be the main frontage of the building. On the bottom right of that image is some of the historic storefront that we're looking to restore. And you'll see it on the next slide in a second, but that storefront originally extended across the entire lower level of the building. So we're looking to restore that to its original. The upper windows as well are boarded up. Again, we're planning on replacing those back to its original design. So if you look to the bottom left as well, so that's the rear of the building, that's off of that West 26th side. So on the bottom right of that, you can see that the garage space that we're planning on demoing. Currently, it's you know, it's not in great shape structurally. So working with the client, we decided to remove that. It's sort of hard to see, but you can just faintly see the outlines of some of the existing historic windows, especially on the second level there. There's like a slight arc to them at the top. So again, we are planning on restoring those to original, and you'll see those in the elevations in the later slides. Yes, thank you, Daniel. Next slide, please. So this is one of the historic elevations that we found through our research. Just to point out a couple things. So that storefront that we pointed out before, stretching across the entirety of the lower level. Again, we're planning on restoring that. So you can see some of the areas where the doors are and sort of jut in. And in the center support is with this like metal column that comes down and reaches the ground. Some other things to point out here are the use of the blade signage. So we're still in early schematics on that, but we do plan on bringing back that historic aspect to the new construction on the exterior. So our elevation actually calls out where we want to place that, but it's still in the works at the moment. Next slide, please. Before we get into the elevations too much, I just wanted to highlight our placement of the elevator in particular through this section. So we really worked diligently with the clients to work with a layout that didn't impede on the historic nature, especially on the front of the building. That's going to be the main frontage facing the public side. So we arranged our layout that you'll see in a couple slides to move the elevator towards the rear of the building without blocking any of those rear windows as well. And this is going to allow us to get those sight lines without having this elevator shaft that's visible from that new street line that's going to be across the street there. So just wanted to highlight that with this graphic here, and we'll dive into the plans a little bit more later. Next slide, please. So here's the front elevation. So this is again facing West 25th. So pretty simple, like we said, restoring the original facade. You can see where those jut-ins for the doors are. So we're planning on restoring all 3 doors back to the original, with the left door being the accessible and public facing entry. Towards the left of the screen, you'll see we have an area picked out right now for the blade signage that we plan on developing further with the client at a later date. Again, so you saw in the section, this is a direct on elevation, but that elevator shaft won't be as visible from the opposite street line as you saw through the section. Next slide, please. These are our plans for the rear elevation. So we had several options on the lower level as far as fenestration goes. There were several blocked off windows. So working with the interior layout of that, we wanted to restore some of those to the original. So these are all original placements, historic placements of the windows that were available at one point. So the bottom door, so we're planning a small canopy over that. Again, we're still in the works what exactly that's going to look like. But that's the area generally we're planning on placing that. And then further to the right, you'll see a garage door. So we're planning on a bifold pneumatic door to extend that interior space to the exterior and really engage with both sides of the building. Next slide, please. So walking you through the layout, you can see a little bit better what that storefront is going to look like architecturally. So looking at the first floor on the right side, so that's that side facing West 25th. You'll see some of the jut-ins and jut-outs with the three entry and exit ways. And we'll get into this, but we're planning some exterior accommodations for that as well. Some main things to hit on. This is a SHPO funded project. We're working with them to meet the criteria for the Department of Interiors and some of the historic elements on the interiors as well, if you were curious. Going back to that storefront, so historically there was sort of this buffer, the sill between the windowsill. So we're planning on restoring that as well to its original condition. So there's going to be sort of this in-between space between the offices and the exterior onto West 25th. Next slide, please. And I won't touch on this too much, but this is our plan for the roof. So we're again working with SHPO to make sure that doesn't encroach too far onto close to the parapet, so that it won't be visible from the street. Next slide. We'll briefly touch on this. So we have 2 plans currently, 2 options for the exterior facing West 25th. Before we get into that, we just wanted to bring you through some of the research we did and the inspiration that we took from the surrounding neighborhoods, specifically Ohio City and the Hingetown neighborhood. So this being some of the precedent images that we found for exterior seating areas. A lot of these are retail. We have commercial frontage, but we took inspiration from its engagement with the street more than anything, and the way that it softens that edge of the building. Next slide. So this is our first option for that. So this shows a small seated area on the left side, the more public facing side of the building, facing West 25th. And our plan currently is to use a system that is self-supporting, does not is not mounted into the ground in any way, so it's fully removable if that were ever to be the case, with a small seating area about 8 feet wide. And in our previous presentation at the PetBot committee, we got some feedback about some of the existing infrastructure that was, on that sidewalk there. And working with our civil team, getting a survey, we found the really only close element of that was that power pole close to the driveway. And I can't remember exactly what number that was. A little small to see there. I want to say it was 8'8". But nevertheless, plenty of clearance between that without impeding on any sort of pedestrian movement through there. Next slide, please. For our second option, we sort of went with this more planner-based approach. So we're still working with the client on what exactly they want there. We're looking to get more clarity in the near future on that. So again, we took some more inspiration from some of the surrounding neighborhoods on what that would look like, and some of these larger green infrastructure that helps sort of soften that edge between the building. Next slide, please. And this is our preliminary layout for that. We're planning on using these, dark plastic exterior planters. They're sort of in this rectangular shape, again, to help soften that edge and create a little bit more of an inviting space for the public. Next slide. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll open it up to comments from the committee members. If anyone wants to kick it off.
No, I think it's a very thoughtful presentation. I like how you've matched the windows to the historic photograph along West 25th. I assume those, oh no, you've done that in the transom above the storefront system. I like, my only question is on the rear of the property. Do you have a historic photo of what those windows were?
Unfortunately, we don't.
Ask is,
oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't. The only indication we really have is there's currently lintels that are sort of embedded in the brick. So that gives us a pretty good idea of where those windows once were. What exactly the time frame of those windows and how they sort of evolved over time is sort of up to discretion. We wish we had more information on that, to be honest.
Okay. They're all single pane, which it's the back. I don't feel too strongly, but if there was I doubt it probably was single pane historically. I don't know if there's a way of having some divided lights there, but I don't feel too terribly strongly about that. And then will we tuck pointing on the brick? Does that need any repair?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're planning on restoring that brick to its original condition.
Okay. I just ask that be sensitive to matching the existing mortar color and then not be like a Portland cement and then it be struck in the way that it was originally. Sometimes that becomes an afterthought and it becomes very noticeable.
Absolutely. Thanks for the feedback.
Are you guys, oh, sorry, Margaret, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nia, go ahead.
Are you guys pursuing storefront grant for this?
No, not at this time.
Okay. I would, I appreciate, first of all, thank you for a great presentation, like 3 for 3 on great presentations today. I appreciate also the sensitivity to the elevator core. I am not opposed to that modification. I think I agree with Alex, like that I would prefer, especially if we consider, not having you guys come back. for a final or treating this as a final. I would prefer if there were specifications for the treatment of the brick, the sandstone at the cornice. At least I think it's sandstone. The mortar, like that those specifications be provided to and reviewed by landmarks as I would say, a condition if we were going to approve it today. The other question I had is just can you, and I would forgive me if you said this, can you clarify what the materiality is of like the lower part of the storefront system?
The
Like that bottom band?
bottom band.
Mhm.
Daniel, could you go to slide 8? Are you talking about the sill under it? Or the, yeah, okay, so that's an existing
band.
stone sill.
No, I'm sorry. I see the stone
bulkhead.
sill. I meant the bulk. Yeah, like the knee wall sort of, for lack of better.
Oh, yeah, I see. We're planning on that being the storefront, so a transom glass.
So you're treating it, is it going to be tinted glass? Is it going to be back?
Sorry, not glass, a filler panel there. So,
And will it
um,
be metal?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I would say maybe providing the specs for that as well would be
Okay.
helpful. I think that's it from me. Yeah, just I would say like usually we would expect require the specifications for those kind of for the storefront system itself and for any treatment to the existing facade, just to verify that. But I do think it's a really sensitive and appropriate proposal and would be comfortable, giving a final approval with the conditions of reviewing those with staff. Okay. Margaret?
That's the problem.
Thanks.
We just haven't quite got there yet. Too. If we had those available, we'd be happy to share them, but we just haven't gotten into colors quite yet. But we'll be happy to share those when we do.
Sounds good.
I have a question about the fenestration on the front, the second level. In the historic photo, it looked like there's quite a bit of decorative divisions between the windows, exterior mutton or division between the windows. What's the plan for the new system?
Yeah, that's a great question, Margaret. So our plan is, if you'll notice a small deviation between the two sides in that historic photo. If we go back to that real quick. Specifically at the top transom. So our intention was to match the side on the left. We think the side on the right was actually covered up at some point. So our plan is to match that fenestration to the best of our abilities and sort of mirror that on the other side as well.
So we'll have like a wider, it almost looks like there's a raised piece, within the in the mutton divide. Will it have that level of detail?
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay. And then are any of those going to be operational? Or will they all
in
be
the
fixed?
front, no.
In the front.
All fixed.
And I agree if the specifications could be provided for review by staff for the treatment of the masonry. I agree with that suggestion. Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up on what Margaret just said. I appreciate the presentation, very straightforward. I think you did a pretty good job. It feels like there's a level of detail missing from the drawing still, kind of overall. I know Alex mentioned the windows in the black back. They're not shown with any kind of like dividers, which I don't know that would have been the case. Maybe though. It looks like in the front there's just kind of a black bar placed across the top of the windows. Go back to slide 8. yeah, it looks like there's just kind of like a black bar placed across the top and the bottom of the windows. And it looks like in the historic photo on the left side, there were kind of wood, whatever, infill panels and sill. And then on the right side, it looks like that glass goes all the way down to that cast stone sill. So, but the thing is, you're working with SHPO, and they're going to require a certain additional level of detail. So I'm not really too worried. I think it's a good project overall. I just think that there probably needs to be slightly more intense level of drawing exercise to get it to the final. And I wouldn't be opposed with, specifications and final stuff being approved, administratively approved. So I got
I guess to Phil's point, where you guys are getting the federal rehabilitation tax credit, you said, or the state, or both?
Both.
Both. Okay. And how far are you in that process? Do you have a signed part two?
We're working with Naylor Wellman as our historic consultant on that. So we're just beginning the process at this time.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, then I think I guess my feelings kind of align with the committees, and that typically for a final approval, there's a lot more detail. We have the specific Conneer window system you're using, that kind of thing. I know you guys wanted to come for schematics, so I mean, I think we could do a couple different things. We could call this schematic. You could take the feedback you got today, go to the commission next week, get feedback again, which I assume would be, along these same lines, and then return to this committee once you have those final details figured out and get a final approval from the committee and then the Landmarks Commission. Or, I guess another option, if the committee was comfortable with it, they could say, yeah, since this is getting reviewed by the State Preservation Office, National Park Service, and we'll go to the Landmarks Commission. There's enough other eyes on it that we trust those details will get themselves sorted out. If you guys were to approve it or conditionally approve it, then I would say you probably want to, before going to the Landmarks Commission, finalize some of those details, pick out your window systems, detail some of the, the transom bars, that kind of stuff. Have, specific heights for all that, and that's that kind of thing. So, I mean, I don't think you wouldn't be getting it turned in for a meeting next week. So I think either way, you'd be, the fastest you would probably get an approval from Landmarks Commission is our first March meeting. So it's, I think you're heading in the right direction. It's just how many meetings do you want to go through, and how much feedback do you want, and how much time do you want to spend just at the drawing table?
Thanks, Dan. That's good feedback. I mean, I think if we were able to get a conditional approval with the caveat that we would send those details along as we develop those, that would probably be best for our schedule. Certainly happy to come back again, but in the interest of keeping the project on schedule, I want to make sure we get feedback we can move forward with. So, as you said, we're certainly getting a lot of eyes on the project, and we know we've got some work to finalize some of those details. But if the board felt comfortable with a conditional approval, we'd be happy to oblige and provide any details you'd like to see as we develop those.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve with conditions that the specs for the window systems, the transoms, those details, including details for the mortar and striking and any repair to the sandstone, be provided to staff for approval. Did I miss any other conditions?
just that the drawings be updated to a suitable level of detail.
And the drawings be updated accordingly.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, Dan, can you call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Flaherty,
Did we lose
we're
her?
still here. Yeah, that's fine.
No.
Yeah, guess so. Mr. Frendorf,
Yes.
Ms. Land,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Talley, and Ms. Marinucci.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously. I thank you guys. I think if you can flesh out the details based on what you heard here, I think it makes sense to just, finalize those, and we'll get you on the commission agenda upcoming. Happy to work with you from a staff level on finalizing details and giving you any feedback. Kind of spent a lot of time working on storefronts on West 25th Street. So, let us know if you need any feedback or assistance.
We're excited to see the storefront returned.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, guys.
Well, yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. That ends our projects for review. No real administrative reports. Just did want to mention we've been trying to get around all the committees. If we ever have a light agenda or no projects on the agenda, we might take the opportunity just to do like an annual review, reminder of policies, procedures, that kind of thing. Something we thought would make sense, to try and just do once a year. But I'm not sure when. You guys are tough. You always have so many projects. So we'll see when we can squeeze that in. But if anyone has any specific questions about any of that, feel free to reach out. I can share, outside of a group setting as well, if that's helpful.
Dan, I have one item, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah, and I have a 1 o'clock meeting, so I have to be very quick about this. So the project, I'm in Philadelphia for work and unable to make the demo visit, but I did attend the demo visit last year for the project in Clinton Avenue. And we denied that demo. Landmarks denied the demo. It got appealed to BZA. BZA upheld Landmarks denying the demo. And now they're back, and I understand the city is the one bringing the permit. It's my understanding of the city process and city code that they should seek code enforcement and not bring the bulldozer, and that would be the appropriate course of action and not perform an end run around the historic district.
I do not disagree. And I got in, I guess, what I would call my first yelling match after almost 20 years here at City Hall with someone else at City Hall yesterday when I went down to the demo bureau to ask why they would be bringing a demo case that the Landmarks Commission just denied last year. It was shared with me that their stance is that we don't have the authority to tell them no. So I've reached out to our attorney down the law department. I'm trying to sort that out and get an answer as to what the law department's stance is on, does landmarks even matter? Because if you ask the building department, they say, well, the code says landmarks has to approve the demos, and that is not the way it's ever been interpreted or enacted, even if that's, how one could read the text.
That seems like a very, pardon me, but Trumpian response to the situation, and one that renders meaningless the historic district.
Yes, that was my feeling as well. Yeah, it was. I got home all fired up yesterday.
Dan, would it be helpful if I reached out to the councilman on this issue, or even further?
I don't think it would hurt. I think, as a member of the committee and, your role at OCI and law clubs and all that, to ask the very valid question. I had a conversation with Ben from OCI about this yesterday, just that, why is the city pushing this? You have a private owner who purchased a home that they knew was condemned with the intention of tearing it down. They were told no. The next step is they maintain it. They fix it up, or they at least keep it safe and secured, not just wait for the city to come by and tear it down.
And it's in a neighborhood and on a street where market conditions more than support rehabilitation.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. But
I'm-
yeah, so there is the site visit at 2:00. I'll be out there. I'm not sure if anyone else can make it, but we'll see if the conditions have changed significantly. If they have, it's my stance that that's on the homeowner. They should have been maintaining it for the last year.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately also not able to make that, and that was going to be my question. Is there a way to get an update on what has changed since that was denied?
Yeah, staff will be taking additional photos, kind of comparing them to what we had last time, what we saw last
Thank
time,
you.
and kind of providing some feedback as to whether there's any significant change in condition.
And any change in condition would be the result of neglect. And you cannot tolerate demolition by neglect.
Correct. Amen. I don't know.
We have not before. And I'm curious in the legal discussion, are we not in a federal landmark? Isn't this federal requirements?
It
This
it
district?
is National Register. It is a National Register district, I believe, but that only really comes into play if there's federal funding involved, and the Demo Bureau doesn't use federal funding for most of their demos. Kind of really only in emergency and large scale cases. They used to.
So
and it
was this just luck of the draw in terms of timing on the condemned properties that they're bringing this one up? Did the owner, I'm just trying to understand the owner's role, like other than, potential
I've
neglect.
got no real answers.
Okay.
I didn't when I went down to talk to them yesterday. I did not get a lot of useful info. But when
Dan,
this
should we be
does,
filing?
oh, go ahead.
Should one of us, and I'm happy to do it, file a public records request then to see what communications between the owner and the building department have occurred?
That could be
And
interesting.
if they're not
just
going to
see
willingly
if
turn them over,
Yeah.
then we'll ask them.
I also wonder exactly if they detail what on the house is condemned, because if it's just a section, like if it's just a porch or something that could be removed with selective demolition and remove the condemnation notice, then yeah, that could be a first step.
And condemnation is really separate and distinct from demolition. Buildings can be condemned and not required for demolition. Condemnation
Right.
can also mean improve it.
Right.
Yeah, it's just there's a nuisance and it's your charge to abate it. You can abate that through rehab. One of the options is demolition, but when that is taken off the table by a commission like Landmarks Commission and you guys, then you got to move to the next thing, which is fix it up. That's why I feel like this should have just been prosecuted through housing court and not brought back before us. But
we can gather the information on violations or anything like that and have it for a staff report when when this comes for review, since it's not currently at review at this time.
that's a good point. We probably shouldn't.
Yeah,
shouldn't get too into it. Sorry, still fired up.
Oh no, I will get a public records request made as well.
Let me talk to Interim Director Fields about that, just to see if she's got any thoughts about that, and if that would cause any complications or that sort of thing. So I'll get back to you on that, Alex.
Okay.
Dan, just real quick, is the current owner local?
They live locally currently.
Yeah.
They did not when they first applied for the demolition in 2020.
They live in or lived in, as of last year, Nashville, Tennessee, bought the property sight unseen.
And locally, as in Ohio City or Northeast Ohio?
In Cleveland, I think they own a property over in the Edgewater neighborhood as well as this one, and apparently a piece of a vacant property in Lakewood. So I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on with all that.
As just a side note with the National Register listing, this is one of the parts of the city where the districts don't line up. And so this part of Clinton's not actually in the National Register district, just the local district. Just a fun fact.
Interesting. I will be there. So I will scope the scene. And I have been in the property multiple times. So I'm curious. I've not, probably the last time was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So I can also attest to kind of the condition and if it seems different than the times I've seen it. I've consulted on it several times to other owners.
Yeah, I guess
All right,
we'll see anyone who can make it out this afternoon, and yeah, we'll certainly do some info gathering and be ready when this comes back before us.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, do I need to officially call the meeting to
Oh,
order or end
yes.
it? Okay,
Yes.
today's meeting of the Ohio City Historic Design Review Committee is adjourned.
Got it.
I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
See you guys.